men, and I use the term loosely. Hey, welcome back to the shop. This video's a little different than most of mine. I'm doing a little bit of a time lapse on the final assembly of the Project 69 chopper. This video kind of starts up right after I pick the frame and the other parts up from the powder coaters. As you can see, I like to put the engine in without the cylinders or the heads on it. It just makes it a lot easier for me to handle. It's easier to get it into the frame without banging the frame up. It just is a lot easier for me. I prefer to put the engine together, final assembly wise, heads and cylinders, after the engine is bolted in the frame. Boom, and all of a sudden the head is on. The only real disadvantage of doing it this way is the two right-hand side head bolts on each cylinder are kind of difficult to reach. I have some special adapters I use on a torque wrench, and I get to them through the opening between the rocker box and the head, right behind where the push rods go. So if you see the push rods in, that means the heads have already been torqued. Alright, so here's the push rods going in. I move each cylinder up to top dead center on compression stroke, put the push rods in, adjust them, crank the engine over at least once, sometimes twice, just to make sure everything is seated and adjusted correctly. Then usually I put the oil tubes on, and that kind of wraps up the top end. Alright, with the motor all together, it's time to move on to the front end. So here we are, sticking a couple of neck cups in there. Next thing would be the triple clamp. So we shove the triple clamp up into the steering stem, kind of run a nut down on it just to check fit it a little bit. The bungee cords are wrapped around there just to keep it from falling out while I get the bearings and the top triple tree and the nut and all that stuff. So there you go, top triple tree installed. Okay, next up a fork tube. Next up another fork tube. Boom, pretty soon the motorcycle's starting to look like a motorcycle. Tighten the big nut down on top of the stem, and we got a front end ready to go. Apparently I didn't have the camera set up, but in the meantime a rear wheel and a brake got installed. And the parts came back from paint, so there's the oil tank installed. Yeah, just a FYI, as a builder I really hate handling newly installed expensive paint jobs. Geez, it makes me nervous. Here you can see me taping off areas on the rear fender that I think the sissy bar might scrape on when I slip it over. Just very nerve-wracking kind of work. The owner spent a lot of money on this paint, and the last thing I want to do is fuck it up. Okay, so the fender's bolted on, and I'm going to install that taillight license plate bracket assembly. And once again, just in case I drop something or something slips or whatever, I got the fender covered with some soft padding there in case I drop a wrench or something on a paint job. And right about now, you notice the skull appears on the sissy bar. The skull is there during final stages of assembly on my projects. The skull is there to ward away evil spirits that might cause unexpected shit to go wrong during final stages of assembly. Alright, so I'm beginning to hook up the wiring, in specific the taillight wiring. Boring, tedious, time consuming. I try to be real careful about how I run the wiring. There's a conduit welded to the inside of the fender to protect it, and almost all the wiring is run through a vinyl covered fiberglass sleeving to protect it. So I take a lot of time with wiring. I use aircraft quality and aircraft, actually they have a mil spec number, aircraft mil spec wire crimps and an aircraft type wire crimping tool, far superior to any of that automotive junk you buy at O'Reilly's or wherever. And just an FYI, this time lapse was done over, probably 3 months. I wasn't working on the bike for 3 months. Most of the time, it was just kind of sitting around waiting for the sheet metal to come back from the painter. After I got the powder coat stuff back, I put the engine in, put the front end on, put the rear wheel on, and then it just sat around for, 6 weeks waiting for the paint to come back. I wanted to get as much done as I could so that when the painted parts showed up, the final assembly would go smoothly. And it worked out pretty well. Final assembly did go pretty smoothly. Okay, you see me peering into the area behind the oil tank. There was kind of a void there, and I put the horn down in there and a terminal board and a fuse. So most of the wiring is hidden behind the oil tank. And of course, a bike like this has really minimal wiring in it. There's not a lot of wiring to it, but what there was, I tried to hide as best I could. And in interest of full disclosure, at the end of this video, you're going to see me hop on this thing, fire it up, and drive it away. I did have the bike running once prior to that part of this video. After I get all the wiring done, it's usually my practice to bungee cord a lawnmower gas tank to the top frame rail, put a little gas in it, run a fuel line to the carb, take it outside and fire it up, just to make sure it runs and make sure there's no weird major problems. I like to do that before I put the gas tank on. God forbid it catches on fire or something and it, ruins the paint job on a gas tank. I do keep a fire extinguisher handy the first time I do fire them up, because you never know, just in case. Yeah, there's probably several more minutes of this video of me hooking up wiring. You know what, I'm going to cut it all out and skip ahead. So let's get rid of this wire shit and jump to the good parts. Okay, here you go. Pop the headlight in, put the retainer ring on, boom, wiring is pretty much done. So let's raise the bike up on the lift and start putting the exhaust on it. Okay, these exhaust pipes were lined or sloshed with one of those coatings that's supposed to prevent them from turning blue when you fire it up. And there's a couple of flavors of that stuff on the market. This was a dry powder that you mix with water and you pour in there and you slop it around. Hey, that shit worked good. I've seen pipes turn blue in as little as 60 seconds. These things, the chrome stayed nice, really nice. It's usually that first several minutes after you fire a bike up the first time that the pipes turn color. I fired this bike up, drove it around a bunch, and the chrome was perfect after driving it a while. So that shit worked good this time. Alright, just a little bit more wiring. These handlebars are drilled for the horn button. That is the only switch on the handlebar. 2 wires for the horn. So anyway, putting the horn button in. Alright, getting close to the big moment. Going to put the air cleaner on. This air cleaner was meant for a larger throttle body, so I had to machine a little bit of an adapter plate to bolt the air cleaner to. Anyway, the owner picked this out. I kind of like it. It's kind of neat. That pointy thing sticking out, as it turns out, hits you right in the middle of the shin. Other than that, it's nice. Okay, last thing that goes on. Gas tank in the fuel line. Put a little gas in it. Make sure it don't leak. Hey, we're ready to fire this bitch up. Let's get it outside. I give them a couple of kicks with the choke closed, fuel on, and the key off just to prime it. Then I'll turn the key on and kick it for real. And this is actually the first attempt with the bike fully assembled, the first time I took the whole bike outside. I'm pretty happy with this result.